the Poetry Center, bringing poetry to Paterson since 1980 at Passaic County Community College.
Anyway, today I'm very pleased to welcome two wonderful poets. And the interesting thing, and I didn't know that when I invited Chen Chen, was that Chen was Martina Espada's student. And I didn't realize that. And I know how much I adore my students and how much I love it when they succeed and how much I love it when they do well. I think there's a Jewish expression, kvel. And I kvel for them. I just feel so wonderful. It feels so great to see them achieving so much. And knowing that when they first started, they maybe were a little frightened and that they got over that fear and were able to plow ahead. There are a lot of boring poets in the world, but I don't think Martine and I are turning any boring poets. Anyway, Chen Chen is the author of 2 books of poetry. I love this. Your emergency contact has experienced an emergency. And when I grow up, I want to be a list of further possibilities, which was long listed for the National Book Award and won the Tom Gunn Award, among other honors. His work appears in many publications, including poetry, 3 editions of the Best American Poetry. He has received 2 Pushcart prizes and fellowships from Cundam, the National Endowment for the Arts, and United States Artists. He was the 2018-2022 Jacob Ziskin Poet in Residence at Brandeis University, and he currently teaches for the low residency MFA program at New England College and Stone Coast. He lives with his partner, Jeff Gilbert, and their pug, Mr. Rupert Giles. And I love the name of the dog. Hi, Mr. Rupert. Come here, Rupert. Call him by his full name when you're calling him?
Mostly just Giles.
Okay, Giles. I love it. Okay, let's welcome Chen to the thing. Chen Chen to the thing.
Hello. Can you hear me all right? Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Maria. And thank you all for being here. Thank you to the Paterson Poetry Center. I am so deeply honored and thrilled to be reading with Martina Espada. I have so many great memories from those classes. At UMass, there was a poetry workshop. There was a class called Poetry of the Political Imagination, and there was a class focused on the work of Pablo Neruda. Just learned an incredible amount about not only poetry, but how to be a poet in the world. Which means a life dedicated to language, caring for the language, and something that I've passed on to my own students, or I've tried. Something that you had said about how politicians and the powerful take the blood out of language, and poets put the blood back into language, and that's stayed with me all this time. It will stay with me forever, and can only hope to continue that legacy. So in that spirit, I want to start with a poem that I first encountered in one of those classes. A poet by the name of Roque Dalton, and this poem is called Like You, and it's translated from the Spanish by Jack Hirschman. Like you. Like you, I love life. I already messed it up. I'm a little nervous. Reading in front of my teacher. Okay. Like you. Like you, I love love. life, the sweet smell of things, the sky blue landscape of January days. And my blood boils up, and I laugh through eyes that have known the buds of tears. I believe the world is beautiful, and that poetry, like bread, is for everyone. And that my veins don't end in me, but in the unanimous blood of those who struggle for life, love, little things, landscape and bread, the poetry of everyone. Okay, I'm going to read a bit from each of my books and then maybe a couple new poems. Self-portrait with and without. With dried cranberries, without a driver's license, with my mother's worry, without till recently my father's glasses, with an A in English, a C in chemistry, with my mother saying, you have to be 3 times better than the white kids at everything, without a dog or cat, with a fish I talked to before bed, telling him my ideas for new kinds of candy, with a tutor in Mandarin, with the 1986 low-budget live-action TV version of Journey to the West, with Monkey King's quest for redemption, Buddhism through Monster of the Week battle sequences, with thinking, I've grown up now, because I regularly check the news in the morning, with the morning the children spared or missed by the child with a gun go back to school, make the same jokes they made 3 Mondays ago, but in a different voice. With a younger brother who is taller than I am. With the youngest brother who wants to go to art school. With my mother's multiplying worries. With my brothers, with the cry of bats, with the salt of circumstance, without citizenship, with the white boy in 9th grade who called me ugly, without my father for a year because he had to move away to the one job he could find on the other side of the state, with his money transferred to my mother, with William Carlos Williams, with the local library, with yet another bake sale for Honduras in Massachusetts suburbia, with the earthquake in my other country, with my mother's long-distance calls, with my aunt's calls from China when the towers fell. How far are you from New York? How far are you from New York? With cities fueled by scars, with the footprint of a star, with the white boy I liked, with him calling me ugly, with my knees on the floor, with my hands begging for straighter teeth, lighter skin, blue eyes, green eyes, any eyes brighter, other than mine.
Beautiful.
Thank you. This next one, I think, Martine, you saw a very early draft of this, like 15 years ago, maybe. And I remember actually continuing to work on this poem up until 2 weeks before the final manuscript was due to the publisher. And it was already kind of running late with it. And I remember receiving an email from Jericho Brown, the poet who had picked this book for the contest that it won. And I felt very fortunate and glad to be able to work with Jericho Brown on this manuscript. And he had just really generous insights and suggestions for it. In particular, with this poem, we went back and forth on it. And again, I was already running behind on the deadline. And I remember receiving an email from him just saying, go back to the first section and try to cut 20% of it. And I was really scared that I wasn't going to make the deadline for the publisher. But I took what he said really seriously because I thought he had just such a great perspective on the poems. So I did do that, and I think it did make the poem better. So also thank you to Jericho. Race to the Tree. 1. I was 13 and it was night, and without even knowing it, I successfully evaded the Amherst police for 4-5 hours. It was night, and without having committed any crimes, I was pursued, looked into by the Amherst police. Well, perhaps I trespassed, scrambled up a tree past mine in its bedtime. Stoic and oak, it once served with dignity as safety. It stood so close to my family's apartment. It was pathetic the police couldn't find me. So close the oak seemed to be ours. But it wasn't. Every oak and pine and birch in the complex belonged to the landlord, whether or not he'd climbed each one himself. I'd scaled this old safe tree with my running shoes, planning to run away, if not far away enough, then for long away enough that my parents would start to miss me. I was 13 and it was night, and all night I stared at the moon from my tree, willing myself to think not of them, but of how it would taste to kiss, to be kissed, O moon, for a long time, for the first time, to be KISSING in this or any tree. 2. I wanted to kiss a boy on the throat, not the soft, smooth neck, but the protruding, tough core of a boy's throat, the part named after the very first boy and the stupid fruit his girlfriend made him eat. His girlfriend's ugly, I thought in my tree. I'd be much better for him. By dawn, I was still 13 and kissless, but had made it using my spy and JV track skills 8 blocks away, without being detected, to the university, the glass and concrete country, where my parents put on their best American accents and smiles to earn degrees, the equivalents of which they'd already earned in China. I was 13 and wouldn't have said it so succinctly, but I knew something about the sadness of the facts. O moon, hungry moon, unkissed and silent, I would kiss you. In that moment, though, I decided to spit and kick at the gray concrete, recalling mom and dad's idiot faces yelling at me. I was 13 and it was morning, and the concrete deserved my punishment, and my climbing it like a tree, and my installing myself everywhere as the landlord, here, and everyone should see. It was morning and my eyes hurt in the growing light. And then as the sun poured its useless gold on all the solid gray, as I was about to reach the top of the slanted edge of a wall, for the first time, my speedy, stealthy sneakers failed me, and I slipped. 3. Ankle twisted and whimpering, I limped back home. My mother rushed out and greeted me with pale-faced silence, then a command to get in the car. As she drove me back to campus, this time to the student clinic, she told me that she had called and called the police, who had told her, "It'll be all right, we'll find him," though they hadn't, maybe didn't even bother to try. I watched my mother's fingers on the steering wheel. An hour later, I boarded the bus to school on crutches. At school, I told the boy I liked, the boy with the best mile times on the team, that I was just getting some extra practice and wasn't careful, and guess now I'll never be as good as you this season. He looked at me for a moment, looked away. I didn't tell him I spent all night in a tree because my mother slapped me after I told her I might be gay. I didn't tell him that I hit her back, that my father tried holding us apart like the universe's saddest referee. I didn't show the boy the bruise, I didn't show the doctor. I said, "Good luck at the race today," then closed my eyes, thought of night, of the moon bobbing through it, like an Adam's apple plucked out, bobbing through a dark absence of throat. Oh, silent and unkissed, that's how I wanted you to suffer too, boy who wouldn't look at me. Seeing you run so beautifully on the track that afternoon, I wanted you to suffocate, breath-starved from all the miles you'd run away from me. Okay, so moving into my second book, I wanted to read this poem that is dedicated to the 49 victims of the Pulse nightclub shooting of June 2016 in Orlando, Florida. And the poem also makes reference to a song and music video by the Korean-American artist Yeji. Thank you. Elegy while listening to a song I can't help but start to move to. For Pulse. 1. What breaks me is their giddy, their swaying moments before. 2. Yeji sings, this product is called depression, and I think about how I haven't been out dancing in a year, and how I say, because I'm a homebody, when my body misses the way bodies become song and light. 3. They're singing along, their jokes, their swoon-worthy moves. 4. How does a body forget all danger and become song, swoon? 5. In the music video, Yeji critiques makeup tutorials by performing one. The makeup products are ego, embarrassing moments, capital D, depression. 6. How does a queer body? 7. I'm in my 7th grade bedroom again, quietly putting my hands on the warm hips of a tall column of air. I've sculpted the air into a boy, Jake B., who sits across in history. I feel finally inside my own face. I'm giddy, then afraid. 8. They're clumsy but don't care. Their beauty, the beauty of the night lit up by a lyric, a kiss, some impossibly impeccable hair. Forgetting all danger because the lungs need to, the legs. 9. In the music video, Yeji dances to the rhythm of her own satirical ritual, finding joy or something like it. 10. They're finding each other. 11. What breaks? 12. How sings a body? 13. One night I walk by a soccer field and see college boys playing, touching each other rough, bare chest meeting bright t-shirt shoulder, and I can't help but think sports are super gay. Think the word glistening must have been invented for just this sight. Their moonlit collisions, my instant replays and slowest cue the soft music motion. 14. The body's truest thought is play, moon. 15. How does my body? 16. In the song, another makeup product is the unexpected tomorrow. Yeji sings, put on the unexpected tomorrow. Yeji sings and I sway, and yet their laughter, I keep hearing their laughter moments before. I'll take a sip of water. The next poem is called Spring. I'll just let you process that title while I take a sip of water. Spring. 75 degrees and we're 3 ready for this, queers in the most flattering shorts. 3 queers ordering too much ramen or just enough, who can say? 3 queers in a FedEx ready to print poems for a long overdue queer salon. 3 queers drinking definitely too much coffee. 3 queers and I'm the one visiting for just the weekend, so let's stay up talking. I mean, have I told you yet about going to my omelet place for lunch the other day, and this guy I overheard? How I was in the middle of eggy arugula bliss when he said, bisexual, all slow like that, to another guy, as though it were a new type of omelet. Though maybe it is. Let's ask the waiter. Did I tell you how he went on? That's what Sarah told us yesterday. And the other guy clicked his tongue like I'm sorry to hear. And the first guy said, bisexual, quickly this time, quieter. She must have heard it on TV, from her friends, you know. She's only 14. And then he sighed. Only 14, already deciding to ruin her life. And then I almost said, what the fuck are you saying? Almost leapt out of my chair to ask the other guy, why the fuck are you fucking nodding? but I didn't. I got scared. Not of them, of my hands, how my hands had curled into fists. 3 queers remembering, but you're only 14. 3 queers talking about last week. 3 queers feeling like 20, drinking ever more coffee, telling sleep to go bother the straits. 3 queers staying up until late becomes early. Okay, I think I will read. I'm going to read some new poems. This first one is called Crab Fried Rice. It has a longer title than that, but it's going to take too long to explain. So it's just called Crab Fried Rice. The world contains crab fried rice and is thus beautiful. Or crab fried rice is more beautiful than the world. Which is true? Which is truer? The world is terrible and people are beautiful. Or people are terrible and the world beautiful. I know this. Life is a joy and living's hard. In other words, being alive, isn't that the hardest joy? And love a kind of death that means you're living? Or is love the very aliveness that helps you to, one day, die? Please tell me if I'm wrong, but I think it's like this. Love, when it's love, is a world, a kinder here in which you wake after a nap, that followed something of an argument, to the smell of rice cooking, no, cooked rice reheating, and then you're at the table, watching scallions fall on all that crab, a huge helping, true heaping of both, delivered by the hands that know you terribly well. Let's talk, he says, he who knows you. Love crab and scallions, hate confrontations, these meetings with truth, your own innermost, and the innerly together. But as your heart, or more crucially, your belly knows, they have to happen. So why not over this radiant bowl of rice? Little feast, like what your parents made for you, plus the kind of conversation they rarely made with you. Love as food and words, both. And maybe there's still a beautiful chance for this both with them. They must sense it too, how being alive is the most serious thing, and living the funniest. But first, sit with him, eat and talk, remember to chew. Okay, 2 more. This is called Going Down Singing, and has an epigraph from Jean Valentine, who died, I believe, at the end of 2020. And the quote from Valentine goes like this: "Listen, kindness, we're in this thing like leaves." Going down singing. The billionaires want me to love X, space and box, and especially Doc. And I do love XOXO. But isn't the best letter of them all W? W. Amazing. Also amazing, the pairs of words, to you, for you, though best beautiful of them all, with you. And isn't it better beauty with someone, this winter sun, through such leafless trees with you? I can better love this light despite the damn cold. And it's easier peasier to love the world in spring. But with you I can doubly love, fully sing the sun's face and breath, caught in the breathing arms of an elder elm. Hey, quick reminder, in this maybe long but always brief thing we're in, don't you dance, don't you be for anything less than song. And this last one is called Have You Eaten Yet? And it's kind of, in many cultures, another way of asking, how are you? Right? Have you eaten yet? Have you eaten yet the mystery of your lungs, the spaceship of your yes, the ethereal of your puns, the eternal of your sex, the chic vivacity of your spiritual and political and sensual rage, the tiny, extremely efficient post office of your least wild dreams, the enormous hocus of your trembling pocus, the dirt of your muse, the deity of your musk? Why haven't you eaten yet this daily breath of yours? Come eat this chest magic, brain planet, this mischief and power, this anger, good anger, your anger, from which you sing your most joyful, deepest no. Thank you.
Thank you, Chen. Beautiful. That was wonderful. Let's welcome now Martina Espada, who has been here a number of times to read and will be back again, I'm sure. But he's published more than 20 books of poetry. He's an editor, essayist, and translator. His latest book of poems is called Floaters. It is really amazing. Winner of the 2021 National Book Award and the National Massachusetts Book Award, and a finalist for the Los Angeles Times Book Prize. Other books of poems include Visa to Those Who Have Failed, The Trellis Ball, The Republic of Poetry, Albanza, Imagine the Angels of Bread. He's the editor of What Saves Us, Poems of Empathy and Outrage in the Age of Trump. He has received the Ruth Lilly Poetry Prize, the Shelley Memorial Award, the Robert Creeley Award, and Academy of American Poets Fellowship, the Penn Refson Fellowship, a Letra Barak Fellowship, and a Guggenheim Fellowship. The Republic of Poetry was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize. The top title poem of his collection, Albanza, about 9/11, has been widely anthologized and performed. His book of essays and poems, Zapata's Disciple, was banned in Tucson as part of the Mexican-American Studies program outlawed by the state of Arizona. A former tenant lawyer in Greater Boston, Espada is a professor of English at the University of Massachusetts, Amherst, and he's an amazing, amazing poet and activist. Let's welcome Martina Espada.
How thoughtful. Thought of everything.
Yeah.
Buenas tardes. Much better. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Very good. Well, I would like to begin by thanking Maria for bringing me here yet again. I have been coming here since 1991. By my math, that's 33 years. I would like to come here for another 33 years. It all began when they gave me the Paterson Poetry Prize. So many thanks to Maria, enormously generous human being. Thanks to Chen, my student. Very, very proud Please give Chen another hand. And I want to thank my wife, Lauren, who is also here and hiding in the back. I'm going to read some poems. I'd like to dedicate this first poem to the 6 migrant construction workers who were killed in the collapse of the Key Bridge in Baltimore. June 2019, 2 Salvadoran migrants, father and daughter, who came to be known as Oscar and Valeria, drowned crossing the Rio Grande. A photograph of their bodies went viral. You might remember it, sparking outrage, sparking grief, and also sparking skepticism. There was a post in the I'm 1015 Border Patrol Facebook group charging that this photograph was a fake. So, my poem speaks to this photograph and to these charges. Floaters, by the way, takes its title from a term used by many members of the Border Patrol to describe those who drown crossing over. So we'll begin here. Floaters. Epigraph. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and ask, have y'all ever seen floaters this clean? I'm not trying to be an ass, but I have never seen floaters like this. Could this be another edited photo? We've all seen the Dems and liberal parties do some pretty sick things. Anonymous post, I'm 1015 Border Patrol Facebook group. Like a beer bottle thrown into the river by a boy too drunk to cry. Like the shard of a styrofoam cup drained of coffee brown as the river. Like the plank of a fishing boat broken in half by the river, the dead float. And the dead have a name. Floaters, say the men of the Border Patrol, keeping watch all night by the river, hearts pumping coffee as they say the word floaters, soft as a bubble, hard as a shoe, as it nudges the body to see if it breathes, to see if it moans, to see if it sits up and speaks. And the dead have names. A feast day parade of names, names that dress all in red, names that twirl skirts, names that blow whistles, names that shake rattles, names that sing in praise of the saints. Say, Oscar Alberto Martinez Ramirez. Say, Angie Valeria Martinez Avalos. See how they rise off the tongue, the calling of birds somewhere in the trees above our heads, trilling in the dark heart of the leaves. Say what we know of them now they are dead. Oscar slapped dough for pizza with oven-blistered fingers. Daughter Valeria sang, banging a toy guitar. He slipped free of the apron he wore in the blast of the oven, sold the motorcycle he would kick till it sputtered to life, counted off pesos for the journey across the river, and the last of his 25 years, and the last of her 23 months. There is another name that beats its wings in the heart of the trees. Say, Tanya Vanessa Avalos, Oscar's wife and Valeria's mother, the witness stumbling along the river. Now their names rise off her tongue. Say, Oscar y Valeria. He swam from Matamoros across to Brownsville. The girl slung around his neck, stood her in the weeds on the Texas side of the river, swore to return with her mother in hand, turning his back as fathers do, who later say, I turned around and she was gone. In the time it takes for a bird to hop from branch to branch, Valeria jumped in the river after her father. Maybe he called out her name as he swept her up from the river. Maybe the river drowned out his voice as the water swept them away. Danya called out the names of the saints, but the saints drowsed in the stupor of birds in the dark, their cages covered with blankets. The men on patrol would never hear their pleas for asylum, watching for floaters, hearts pumping coffee all night on the Texas side of the river. No one, they say, had ever seen floaters this clean. Oscar's black shirt yanked up to the armpits, Valeria's arms slung around her father's neck, even after the light left her eyes, both face down in the weeds back on the Mexican side of the river. Another edited photo. See how her head disappears in his shirt, the waterlogged diaper bunched in her pants, the blue of the blue cans. The radio warned us about the crisis actors we see at one school shooting after another. The man called. Oscar will breathe, sit up, speak, tug the black shirt over his head, shower off the mud, and shake hands with the photographer. Yet, the floaters did not float down the Rio Grande like Olympians showing off the backstroke, nor did their souls float up to Dallas, land of rumored jobs and a president shot in the head as he waved from his motorcade. No bubbles rose from their breath in the mud, light as the iridescent circles of soap that would fascinate a 2-year-old. And the dead still have names. Names that sing in praise of the saints, names that flower in blossoms of white, a cortege of names dressed all in black, trailing the coffins to the cemetery. Carve their names in headlines and gravestones they would never know in the kitchens of this cacophonous world. Enter their names in the book of names. Say, Oscar Alberto Martinez Ramirez. Say, Angie Valeria Martinez Avalos. Bury them in a corner of the cemetery named for the sainted Archbishop of the Poor, shot in the heart saying Mass, bullets bought by the taxes I paid when I worked as a bouncer and fractured my hand 40 years ago, and bumper stickers read, El Salvador is Spanish for Vietnam. When the last bubble of breath escapes the body, may the men who speak of floaters, who have never seen floaters this clean, float through the clouds to the heavens, where they paddle the air as they wait for the saint who flips through the keys on his ring like a drowsy janitor till he fingers the key that turns the lock and shuts the gate on their babble-tongued faces, and they plunge back to earth, a shower of hailstones pelting the river, the Mexican side of the river. Not that long ago, a children's book about Roberto Clemente was banned and then unbanned in Florida. So here's a Clemente story. Puerto Rican Baseball Hall of Famer Roberto Clemente died on New Year's Eve 1972, delivering earthquake supplies to Nicaragua. I was 15 years old at the time, living in Valley Stream, Long Island. Of course, we were the only Puerto Rican family in town. Thus, this poem. Big Bird died for your sins. Barry was 6'6", 15, like me, loading layups and hook shots over our heads through the hoop in my driveway. We called him Big Bird for dwarfing us, for his slappy feet, for the mouth that hung in a grin at all our stories. We called him Big Bird because he would yell, "Foul!" every time anyone bumped him under the basket, as if we lived on Sesame Street. I liked Big Bird and his white boy afro. He never called me a greasy-haired spick under the hoop in my own driveway like Frankie, the clown on the block. On New Year's Eve, Roberto Clemente himself set foot on the prop plane at the airport of Puerto Rico, my father's island, boxes for Nicaragua stacked up after the earthquake, knowing the dictator's Guardia Nacional would crack open the crates, greedy as a pillaging army if he did not loom over them. The DC-7, engine like a smoker's heart, 4,000 pounds overweight, sputtered 100 feet above the trees, then spiraled into the sea on a night when the moon deserted the sky, the keeper of a lighthouse dreaming drunk. A crowd kept vigil on the beach. His compañero, the catcher, dove and dove again between the fins that sliced the waves till the propeller's twisted hand rose from the sea, but never the body, never the ball player, never Clemente, never. My father told me, Roberto Clemente is dead. I could swear my father's eyes were red. I had never seen my father cry. This must be hay fever in winter. My mother saw him cry once, watching the funeral of JFK on television, the black riderless horse and the empty boots in the stirrups for the fallen. Later, the day after the baseball writers voted Clemente into the Hall of Fame, as the boys under the hoop toweled off and scooped up Cokes from a cooler, I said, when my father told me Clemente died, there were tears in his eyes. No one said anything, not even Frankie the Clown. Big Bird stopped grinning. Big Bird was thinking. The whine in his voice was gone when he finally said, they only did that because he was Puerto Rican. They only did that because he was black. There was once an episode on Sesame Street where Luisa Maria taught Big Bird about the meaning of death, how we all die one day, and his yellow head drooped heavy as a sunflower. I feel sad, he said. I could have rolled the numbers out like the dice in my Stratomatic baseball board game. 317, lifetime average. 414 in the 1971 series. 3,000 hits, 12 gold gloves, the only walk-off inside the park grand slam in baseball history. I could have called on the spirit of a dead ball player to flood the screens in their heads with the leap and stab of the ball against the wall in right field that saved a no-hitter, the bark of the ball off his bat that fractured a pitcher's leg. I said nothing. I never said anything. Even when Frankie would croon his favorite song in my face, Spicka Spooka, the other boys would bathe in it. The next game began. I guarded Big Bird. I stomped on his slappy feet, spiked my elbows into his rib cage, rammed shoulder after shoulder into his back, blocked shots by jamming the ball into his chest. I knew nothing of karate, but kicked the air every time I yanked a rebound away. Foul! Yelled Big Bird, like a song on the jukebox nobody wanted to hear. Foul. This was my hoop, so I couldn't foul out. I wanted to see Big Bird cry, like I saw my father cry. Big Bird sniffed. No one saw him sneeze. He squinted hard, but we all knew. That day, Big Bird died for the sins of the fathers who cursed at the dark ball players on TV in the living room where their sons could hear it all. I had a vision of Big Bird rising above the palm trees, igniting in the air like a feathery piñata too close to the spark of a cigarette, crashing into the sea, the sharks feasting on yellow feathers, Luis and Maria on Sesame Street, explaining the meaning of a puppet's death as the nation mourned.
We can't reach it any better than you can. Sorry, honey, my shoulder doesn't move.
All right.
Thanks.
Well, Therefore, lacking any athletic ability whatsoever, I became a lawyer. I was a tenant lawyer with Su Clínica Legal, a legal services program for low-income Spanish-speaking tenants in Chelsea, Massachusetts, right across the Tobin Bridge from Boston. This poem is called "The City Wears a Coat to Bed." The white army of winter spreads across the city. Boilers and radiators die in their sleep, their skin cold to the touch in the morning. The city wears a coat to bed. The city watches the wraith of breath rise in the kitchen. On Friday afternoons, the judges slip off their black robes and drive home. There is no light in the windows of the courthouse. There is no one to read the affidavit or sign the injunction to shove into the landlord's hand so that heat courses through the heart of the boiler and the looping hard veins of the radiator again. No one to hear the tenant's story translated, her sons and daughters shivering in their coats on the mattress, snot on their sleeves. The judges and the landlord home or stopping in a bar on the way home. She tells me instead, the lawyer who speaks Spanish and explains in Spanish why there will be no heat this weekend, why there is no one at the courthouse to listen, and still she pours her story into my ears till they swell to bursting. I walk her to the doorway of the office. The secretary is in the bathroom, the office space heater in the corner. Suddenly, I am steering the tenant out the door with the space heater in her arms as she says, gracias, over and over. And I say, okay, okay, knowing the secretary would yell my name louder than the time a drunk with a lightning scar on his belly charged through the door, naked, but for his socks and a Salvation Army blanket. The secretary would not miss the office space heater till Monday. I am the hero of this story, riding the bus home across the bridge, till I remember the words I should have said about the glowing coils too close to the mattress, how every week another fire rolls the smoldering wraith of winter through the bedroom as sons and daughters sleep, how every week EMTs tuck white sheets over bodies dead as a landlord's boiler. I will dream with eyes open of windows, the coils of space heaters and the coils of mattresses glowing in every window. My wife, Lauren, sitting in the back, is a writer and a teacher. In fact, she taught developmental English right here at PCCC. She also taught adult literacy at Ava's Village here in Paterson. She is the tutor in this home, which somehow snuck into the New Yorker. This poem is called Gonzo. Everybody knew Gonzo. His cigarettes and cologne, his gold crucifix, the white t-shirt he wore to every meeting. They leaned closer to listen whenever he spoke in the circle at the rehab center, some with eyes shut, seeing his confessions of addiction's demons and sobriety's angels at war. No one knew Gonzo signed his name with an X. The tutor at the rehab center held up flashcards and sounded out the letters A, B, C. There was no alphabet song in Gonzo's head, no teacher at the blackboard. He said the letters one by one. At the letter S, he stopped. The tutor studied Gonzo's nose, long but not as long as the nose of the Muppet with the same name. S, she said again. Gonzo had no front teeth, no place for his tongue to go. He puffed and sprayed, a man unable to navigate the river of his own name, Gonzales. He hid his face in his hands, unlettered cards in his head, as if the tutor could not see him now. A sob surged through him, a beast chained to the rock of his ribs for 50 years, since the days the roosters woke him up for school in Puerto Rico. He wiped his face clean. Gonzo was clean. Clean fingernails, clean shaven, clean white shirt. The tutor waited, thinking, he doesn't know his letters, but he knows every street in Paterson by name. She squeezed Gonzo's wrist once, then again, till his eyes met hers. She held up the next flashcard. She said, "Say T." Well, I have actually been writing a series of love poems to Lauren in the voices of strange creatures. This one was actually in PLR number 51, I believe it's the current issue. And here's the backstory. I lost a contact lens the day of a reading, and then together we saw a one-eyed fish in this sad little aquarium. So guess who I am in this poem? Love song of the one-eyed fish. I circle the tank in the aquarium, waiting for the school groups to tumble down the aisle like acrobats escaping the circus, clowns on their day off. They chatter about all the sharks they want to see, the dolphins to feed. They stop at my tank on tiptoe, fingers streaking the glass, and then they scream at the hole in my face. I am the one-eyed fish, my eyeball scooped out of the socket by another fish in a fight over who would hide in the rusty cylinder at the bottom of the tank, the authentic recreation of my environment in the bay. The teachers scream at the school groups to stop screaming and say to each other, "Is that all? Is this it?" We have no sharks or dolphins here. Nothing on the second floor, only a can for donations by the door and a one-eyed fish bumping off the glass. One morning, after I stare with my eye at the janitor mopping the floor, waiting for the 7th grade to yell in my half face, I see the flash of you, an angel fish in my tank. Proof that the gods of the aquarium are benevolent, that they checked the rusty cylinder at the bottom of the tank and figured out why the other fish was always sleeping. I am a fish in a tank doomed to swim in circles forever, and so I cannot hide the hole in my face. Yet you do not flit to the corner of the tank or dive into the rusty cylinder. You swim with me, and we circle the tank together. The school groups tumble down the aisle on cue, and the teacher says, "Look, an angel fish." If I could sing, that would be the name of my song. Look, an angel fish. I've actually never read this next poem in public. So here goes. This is indeed a new poem for my friend, teacher, and mentor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, Professor Steve Stern. Steve and his wife, Florencia Mayón, are historians of Chile. Florencia is now in memory hospice. Some of you may know the song Gracias a la Vida, Thanks to Life by Violeta Parra. It features here. This poem is called Florencia Again and Again for Steve Stern. The singers sang to Florencia Mayón today. The threshold singers stood at the bedside in memory hospice and sang. As the pollsterer Frida Kahlo looked on, as Florencia looked on, the only word she spoke was no. The only word still left on her tongue as she colored in her coloring book. The chorus sang as you walked into the room, and Florencia's eyes brimmed with the sight of you, husband, compañero. You slid behind her, arms looped around her neck, and she leaned back, lips sprouting for a kiss on the mouth once, then again. Let's sing to the singers, you said. You queued up the song on your cell. You sang, Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, thanks to life that has given me so much. Florencia sang in Spanish, was Florencia again, the song drifting from a window in the girlhood Santiago of her head. She became the writer of history she could no longer read, the teacher of students who would remember what she could not remember, Florencia again. When life in the song gave her the abecedario, she sang the word for alphabet from a spring so deep in the cavern of her brain, no neurologist could ever find it, Florencia again. When life in the song gave her La Marcha de mis pies cansados, she sang about the march of my tired feet, loud enough to startle the pack of nurses in the hallway, the march with you, her compañero, your tired feet trying to keep up with her, the march against the dictator in her Chile, all the songs a crowd would sing, Florencia again. How do you kill an idea? Florencia said to me when I asked why so many had to die in Chile, at an age when I still had to ask. 6 words I will carry like tiny shells from Chile as long as I remember what I remember, Florencia again. Gracias, you sang with Florencia at the bedside to the singers at Memory Hospice. You handed them the sheets with the printed lyrics of the song. Next time when you come, you can sing it to her, you said, Florencia again. My teacher, tomorrow you will turn the knob all hands dread, as if the steel would liquefy their fingers, walk through the door once more and sing. And so Florencia will become Florencia again and again. And I'll finish my reading with this poem. Last poem in the book, Floaters. My father, Francisco Luis Espada, Frank Espada, was born in the mountain town of Utuado, Puerto Rico in the year 1930 and died in Pacifica, California in the year 2014. When Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico, I suddenly saw my father's hometown of Utuado everywhere, over and over on TV, on the internet, headlines. As John Lee Anderson put it in the New Yorker, Utuado had become, quote, a byword for the island's devastation, and 4,000 people died in Puerto Rico. So I started talking to my father, who had died 3 years before. Actually, I started talking to his ashes in a box, and that was the genesis of this last and final poem. Letter to my father, October 2017. You once said, my reward for this life will be 1,000 pounds of dirt shoveled in my face. You were wrong. You are 7 pounds of ashes in a box, a Puerto Rican flag wrapped around you next to a red brick from the house in Utuado where you were born, all crammed together on my bookshelf. You taught me there is no God, no life after this life. So I know you're not watching me type this letter over my shoulder. When I was a boy, you were God. I watched from the 7th floor of the projects as you walked down into the street to stop a public execution. A big man caught a small man stealing his car, and everyone in Brooklyn heard the car alarm wail of the condemned, he's killing me! At a word from you, the executioner's hand slipped from the hair of the thief. The kid was high, was all you said when you came back to us. When I was a boy and you were God, we flew to Puerto Rico. You said, my grandfather was the mayor of Utuado. His name was Buenaventura. That means good fortune. I believed in your grandfather's name. I heard the tree frogs chanting to each other all night. I saw a banana leaf and elephant palm sprouting from the mountain's belly. I gnawed the mango's pit, and the sweet yellow hair stuck between my teeth. I said to you, you came from another planet. How'd you do it? You said, every morning, just before I woke up, I saw the mountains. Every morning, I see the mountains. In Utuado, 3 sisters, all in their 70s, all bedridden, all Pentecostales, who only left the house for church, lay sleeping on mattresses spread across the floor when the hurricane gutted the mountain the way a butcher slices open a dangled pig, and a rolling wall of mud buried them, leaving the 4th sister to stagger into the street, screaming like an unheeded prophet about the end of the world. In Utuado, a man who cultivated a garden of aguacate and carambola, feeding the avocado and star fruit to his nieces from New York, so the trees in his garden beheaded all at once like the soldiers of a beaten army, and so hanged himself. In Utuado, a welder and a handyman rigged a pulley with a shopping cart to ferry rice and beans across the river where the bridge collapsed, witnessed the cart swaying above so many hands that raised a sign that told the helicopters, Campamento Los Olvidados, Camp of the Forgotten. Los Olvidados wait 7 hours in line for a government meal of Skittles and Vienna sausage, or a tarp to cover the bones of a house with no roof as the fungus grows on their skin from sleeping on mattresses drenched with the spit of the hurricane. They drink the brown water, waiting for microscopic monsters in their bellies to visit plagues upon them. A nurse says, these people are going to have an epidemic. These people are going to die. The president? flips rolls of paper towels to a crowd at a church in Guaynabo. Zeus lobbing thunderbolts on the locked ward of his delusions. Down the block, cousin Ricardo Bernice's boy says that somebody stole his can of diesel. I heard somebody ask you once who Puerto Rico needed to be free, and you said, 3 pulgadas de sangre en la calle. 3 inches of blood in the street. Now, 3 inches of mud flow through the streets of Utuado, and troops patrol the town as if guarding the vein of copper in the ground, as if a shovel digging graves in the backyard might strike the ore below, as if La Brigada swinging machetes to clear the road might remember the last uprising. I know you are not God. I have the proof. 7 pounds of ashes in a box on my bookshelf. Gods do not die. And yet, I want you to be God again. Stride from the crowd to seize the president's arm before another roll of paper towels sails away. Thunder Spanish obscenities in his face. Banish him to a ruthless rainstorm in Utuado so he unravels one soaked sheet after another till there is nothing left but his cardboard heart. I promised myself I would stop talking to you, white box of gray grit. You were deaf even before you died. Hear my promise now. I will take you to the mountains where houses lost like ships at sea rise, blue and yellow from the mud. I will open my hands. I will scatter your ashes. En Utuado. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I knew ahead of time that Martine and I would be reading together, but I was still a bit nervous. I mean, I think it's just, nerve-wracking when it's, your former professor who you just respect, admire so much, and I love his work. I've loved his work for many years. And I also know what an incredible reader that he is. I mean, so I'm glad that I went first. I mean, I could not follow up on his incredible reading. But, it was such an honor. And yeah, I'm just so glad that we got to do this together.
Did you always want to be a poet?
A writer. I think I always wanted to be a writer since I was very little. I just loved being able to create my own world out of language, and I just found it so freeing. And it wasn't anything that, any authority figure from a teacher or parent was really expecting me to do or telling me to do. And so I felt like, oh, here is something that is my own, and it's really my own imaginative space, it's my own creative space. And so, yeah, I think early on, I felt like writing was something that I would become really passionate about and continue.
What could you say or share with those folks? Is there any words of encouraging? Are you able to, help folk just from saying, okay, you do this, you do that?
Yeah, I think it's really a matter of how you pay attention to things, including yourself and your own life story, but also the world around you. Just paying really deep, close attention and giving everything around you and also within yourself that care, because I really think, a poem can come from anywhere. And so often, I hear from my own students, oh, I'm not inspired, or, what do I have to say? Is anything that I think about worthy of being in a poem? And I think the answer is very much yes. And, it's a matter of how you pay attention. And I think poetry is a chance to really take your own life seriously.
Well, community is something I take seriously. I'm always looking for it myself. And I define it in many ways. And you're talking about the Puerto Rican community, for example. And I had the good fortune to be raised in an activist household by a Puerto Rican father who was deeply connected to the community. He even used to refer to Puerto Ricans as our people. And so I grew up with that, and I was really blessed to be part of that community in New York and beyond, and to inherit my father's relationships and I became, for example, good friends with one of his tightest compañeros, a writer named Jack Agüeros. In the present, I find community wherever I find it, among like-minded people, people who share the same passion, whether it's poetic or political or cultural or personal. And one of my communities is right here. There are many connections to Paterson, but there is no deeper or more important connection for me than the Poetry Center. And Maria Mazziari Gillen, you, people I always know I'll see here. And it's been a while because, COVID, and then I did a Zoom reading once for this community. But this always feels again so familiar that when I was sitting up there doing this reading, I was really energized. And most of what I read this afternoon was new work. I would never dare to do that unless I really, really trusted the community I was sharing the work with, in this case, the community here at the Poetry Center. I wouldn't go around doing that. Usually it's greatest hits, but in this case, I thought, I'm going to try reading this poem I've never read anywhere because I know who is hearing it. So I go from defining community very literally and very narrowly in terms of your own, what my father called our people, and to broadly, wherever you find it, wherever you go, wherever you travel or wander, and wherever you embrace others and are embraced yourself, that's community.